All right, here we go. Final challenge in this Fireside reunion event, which is Knight of Nian's Rampage. I'm surprised they actually got the translation of the creature's name right. I thought they would have called it like the Year Monster or something, but at least they were smart enough to translate that properly. But anyway, this is as a final challenge. This has got to be one of the easiest ones they've given us for a while. Maybe it's because my stats on my units are decently high. So I don't need to worry about a lot of mechanics for this fight. So this fight is mostly just a very straightforward boss fight. He does do a lot of AoE attacks, and that's really the stat check here. You want to make sure that your units can survive all kinds of AoE attacks. And there is one AoE attack in particular that can probably just one-shot you. I'll talk about that when we get to it. So this boss has three forms. He has a normal form, which is what he's in right now. He has a giant form, and he has a Miniscule form. So basically, it doesn't actually change that much about the boss. You just hit him all the same. It does change the amount of damage he takes from physical or magic attacks, depending on which form he's in. But he doesn't reduce damage to 0 or anything like that. So just bring your strongest DPS and hit him as much as you want to. And you want to kill him as fast as possible, because there are a couple mechanics in this fight where he ramps up the damage he does the further the fight goes along. So you do want to be careful of that. So in the first form, as you saw, he started off by using a skill called Swoop. He actually has... This Swoop attack is something he will have in one of his other forms as well. And what it does is that it's like Eclipse. He teleports to a square, does an AoE attack, and he actually increases your AoE damage taken by 100%. So this is obviously really dangerous if your stats aren't high enough, because he's going to follow up with a number of other AoEs. So if you're not strong enough, he's going to do a ton of damage and just kill you. Obviously, the way to avoid this is to have Last Rites. That can help you survive a little bit more, which is what I do right here. As you can see, Matthew was able to take the Dark Dragon Breath. And he didn't take that much damage. So this Shadow Breath actually... So this Dark Dragon Breath also inflicts a debuff called Chaos. It's a very strange debuff. So what it does is that every time you use an assist skill, or some kind of ally buffing skill, using that unit that's being inflicted with Chaos, they will actually knock back your units 2 spaces in what seems to be a random direction. There seems to be some amount of control over it if you position the unit buffing in a certain position, but for the most part it just seems to make them move all over the place. Now personally, I don't really go out of my way to deal with this mechanic that much. I feel like it's kind of annoying, but it's not really something you need to worry about too much. So the final skill he does in his normal form is what you just saw. He uses a Heaven Sanction style skill. This skill does not actually do direct damage like Heaven Sanction normally does. Instead, what it does is that it does 48% HP fixed damage. Why that number, I have no idea. But he actually increases the strength of this Heaven Sanction every single time he uses it. So in a way, this is, I guess, like a soft timer for you on this fight. Now, this is considered fixed damage in some ways, so you can actually reduce it using things like Emilia's 3-cost aura, or like, I guess you can equip that fixed damage reduction armor if you really want to, if you have some of those lying around for some reason. But I don't think that's really necessary. If your DPS are strong enough, you should be able to kill him before this skill becomes an issue. As far as I can tell, Meditation Ring and Swordsmith Metal or Bracer do not affect that skill. So you can't just cheese it by giving everybody Med Ring or whatever. And honestly, that's not the biggest concern of this fight anyway. So after you fight him for 3 turns, he is going to transform into his giant form. So in his giant form, he does more damage, but he has less defense. So at this point, you of course want your physical DPS to be doing as much damage as possible. And in this form, he actually does a single target attack, which does 3 times damage. It also ignores revives, and also inflicts stun. So this is a very, very strong tank buster. So you want a very strong tank to be able to take this hit. Now, of course, I have Almeida here. So she is providing all kinds of attack down debuffs on this map. That's going to make the single target attack a lot less of an issue than it would have been otherwise. Other than that, his giant form still uses the Shadow Breath attack, which makes you knock around your own allies. And he will also use Heaven Sanction again. He has Heaven Sanction in all three of his forms, so like I said, it's basically a soft timer to the fight. So in his giant form, like I said, the biggest issue is his single target attack. And this is probably the first part where these lanterns that are flowing around the battle will come into play. So these lanterns, what they do is that they actually reduce the amount of damage you take as long as you're standing within 2 spaces of them. However, they will also lose HP while you're doing this, so they're kind of a temporary safety net for you to stay safe from certain attacks from this boss. And if your stats are not as high as mine, or your stats aren't very high in general, you're going to need to make a lot of use of these lanterns, and you're going to need to use them very carefully, because obviously they will run out if you keep using them too much. And of course, if you want to use these lanterns, the Shadow Breath debuff is also going to be more annoying, because you're going to be knocking around your own guys around a lot, and that might knock you out of the range of these lanterns. So, like I said, the giant form, he does a devastation attack, which does 3 times damage. If your tank can't take that, you're going to have to walk your tank into the lantern and have them tank from there and reduce the damage as much as you can. So after he is done with his giant form, he will transform into his miniature form. In his miniature form, he will start by using Swoop, which is the same skill as he did in his first normal form. Like I said, it is an Eclipse style attack that will do AoE damage taken plus. And then the skill after that is called Wondrous Palm. Now this is probably the most dangerous attack in the entire fight. Now this fight is basically a black hole style AoE, but it does 0.8 times damage, which is a lot. It'll teleport all the targets, and because he did Swoop before he uses Wondrous Palm, you're going to take a ton of extra damage. So basically, this is going to one-shot almost anybody that gets hit by it. So my recommendation for this is that unless you are smart and position your units to avoid Swoop, which honestly is a pain in the ass, so I'm not even going to recommend that you do that. Instead, I'm going to recommend that you do what I'm doing here. You should just spread out your units in a way so that the boss is going to use the Wondrous Palm attack on people who are bunched together. Ideally, your tank, because your tank is going to have a revive. So, even though here, Wondrous Palm actually does not succeed in killing my Vargas, even if it did, it doesn't matter, right? My Vargas still has a revive. And he has a bunch of other revives from his 3C if I really need them. But I really don't want the fight to go on that long anyway. But anyways, like, you really shouldn't be running into Wondrous Palm more than once in this fight. And once you get past Wondrous Palm, the rest of the fight should be a pretty straightforward ordeal. You just wail on him until he dies. And make sure your HP is high, because Heaven Sanction is getting stronger and stronger with each use. The last thing I think is worth mentioning are what these lanterns do once they blow up for the first time. So at first they are reducing the amount of damage you take when you're standing near them, but once they blow up, it actually turns into a bomb type of thing. Now these bombs are actually not hostile to you, they are actually also here to help you, which is actually something I didn't understand when I first saw it. I thought it was like supposed to punish you, but it's not. What they do is that if they blow up within 1 ring of the boss, they will actually give the boss a debuff that will increase the damage he takes. If you can get these bombs to blow up near the boss, this will also obviously help you a lot with finishing the fight faster. But anyway, like I said, the only mechanic that I think most people have to look out for is the Wondrous Palm attack. And like I said, like, yeah, you can play around the mechanics if you want to, but it's easier to just take a revive unit, plant them next to these lanterns so that the AI goes like, okay, I want to blow up all these units bunched together. Everybody else just spreads out, and he's just going to leave you alone. You know, if you lose a revive, you know, that's what it's there for, right? So other than that, you just wail on the boss until he dies, so that's all there's going to be to this fight. Nothing too complex, actually. Nice to have a final challenge that's not completely ball-bustingly difficult once in a while. So with that, that's the end of the Fireside Reunion challenges. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time.